Good example again. We have just looked at what is interview and what are the advantages and disadvantages of interview. Let us now look at questionnaire. Questionnaire and interviews are, like I said towards the beginning of the data collection lecture, that they are very similar. The only difference between interview and questionnaire is that the role of the researcher. In case of interview, the interviewer is the one to ask the question, read the question if the questions are not clear, and they are the ones to record the answers or record the responses from the respondents, or record the responses, or record the answers from the respondents. But in case of questionnaire, there's no rule of research here. A questionnaire has just a list of questions, and these questions have to be read by the respondents themselves, and they have to understand by themselves, and they have to write the responses themselves. So that's the only difference between the questionnaire and the interview. Questionnaire is basically a written list of questions, like I said, and they are being recorded by the respondents itself. In a questionnaire, the peculiar thing about questionnaire is that, like I said in the again in the beginning, the differentiation between the interview and the questionnaire is that respondents read the questions themselves, interpret what is expected, and then write down the answers. But in case of interview, interviewers are the ones to record the answers, or record the responses. And because of this reason that questionnaires do not have researchers in front of them to explain, it's very important for the researchers to frame these questions in a very clear, succinct, and in a very understandable manner, so that the respondents need not have to ask other people. They do not have to ask you back, and they will respond the questions. And the structures have to be also easy to be read, pleasant to the readers, and the sequence should be also easy to follow. So it's very important that the clarity, the structure, the sequence, the order to be well taken care in case of questionnaire, because these questions are not being guided by interviewer or researcher, unlike the interviewer. So clarity is the main important thing in case of questionnaire, because some respondents may not feel like answering if the questions are written in a very unclear fashion, not very structured well, and the sequence are not very easy to follow. So that's when response rate of the questionnaires are usually low. And for sensitive questions, it's always advisable to write some preface explanation towards the top or towards the beginning of the questions, because it's very important for them to understand that whatever sensitive information that they are going to write in the questionnaire will not be disclosed to anyone else. It will be kept as confidential, and this kind of sentences or this kind of explanation is very important to keep during the preface of the question, and this may be preferably written in different forms. There are different ways of administering a questionnaire. Few of many ways or major ways are these three ways. So the first way is the mail questionnaire. You can either email them through the soft copy, or you can mail them through the hard copy. In the latter case, when you are mailing them through the hard copy, their mailing address should be known, and also in both cases, when you are sending through email or whether you're sending through mail or like through post, it's very important that you need to write some kind of like covering letter. So inside the envelope, if you can write one letter just as a covering letter, just stating the topic, the reason why you want to conduct, and reason why as a respondent he or she is very important for this research. You need to state even your objectives very clearly so that the response rate from your mail questionnaire will be high. But in case of again email, it's very important for you to write a paragraph or two mentioning the topic and the importance of your research, the objectives that you want to fulfill. And this kind of covering letter is very important because some of the respondents, they do not feel like responding to a direct email with questionnaires and or to a direct mailed questions, because they will not feel the importance of your research if you do not write something else before sending the questions to them. The second one is collective administration. Collective administration works when people are usually gathered in a classroom setting, or usually attending a function, usually participating a program. All in all, usually they are assembled in one place. So during that time, it's very important for you to take advantage of your research. So just go there, and if you want the number of respondents to be 300, and if the hall has around like 1000, it's very important you choose randomly 300, or if it is random sampling, just choose 300, or if it is systematic sampling, or if it is just non-random, then just choose 300 from that hall. So it's one of the quickest and smartest way, and again the response rate will be very high. In case of number one, the mailed questionnaire, the response rate is usually low, but in case of collective administration, the response rate will be very high because you are there to enforce yourself, and it's very quick, and it really saves money because if you have to send through email, you need data. If you have to send through mail, you need money to pay for your postcards and all. So for collective administration, it saves money, and I recommend you to do your questionnaire in collective administration if you have the chance to do so. So administration in public space is again another way of administering. Here you basically want a certain number of people, so you basically go to public places like, for example, shopping centers, and pick like 1 to 2 people, request them, tell your research objectives, and tell the importance of your research, and tell the importance of their participation in this research. Then you stop them, then you give the questions to them, then you let them fill the questions for you. So again, lots of advantages are there, like high response rate and quick way, but may not be quick because because you need to travel to these public places. So these are 3 ways to administer the collection of data through questionnaires. So basically, questionnaire is when you take some bunches of questions and give it to respondents, and respondents fills those questions and gives back to you. The advantages of questionnaire is that it's very cheap or less expensive as compared to interviews, because for interview you have to personally go yourself. Your research field assistants, if you have employed them, they have to go by themselves, ask themselves. You need to pay for their accommodation and transportation, footing and lodging, so quite expensive. But in case of a questionnaire, you just have to give it to someone else. If someone else is going to Thimphu and you want some data from Thimphu, just give the questionnaire to people who are living for Thimphu, and they will be just leaving the questions in those offices and those residents that you want him or her to live there. And again, less expensive again. And again, it offers great anonymity because you sometimes you do not have to ask, you do not have to face with the respondents face to face, and sometimes you do not have to even keep a space where to write their details like their name, age, and all. So they just have to write the answers, what they feel. So the anonymity can be something that can be really protected in case of questionnaire, but in case of interview, you really have to know that person, you really have to face that person, and that person may feel not feel very secure, and he or she may like to be anonymous, but there's no chance for interview. So disadvantages of questionnaire is that if population are if population have the limited knowledge to read and write, then that's when you'll have low response rate. That's when you should stick with interview if they do not know how to read and write your questions. One of the bad disadvantages of interview is questionnaire is that it has low response rate. Even if you give 100 questions to the students, you may be getting back only like 60 or 70 questions back. Is because of low response rate. Your papers may be misplaced by your friends and all. So low response rate in nutshell. Lack opportunities to clarify doubts. So yes, like I said, interviewer are not there, so you do not have the opportunity to clarify the doubt. It has to read and written by the interview itself. There's a halo effect because interviewer is not there to explain, and again, it's totally based on respondents, and respondents have to read and write themselves. Whatever answers they have given in the previous questions, they may be giving the same answers to the following questions too. So there are lots of halo effect in questionnaire. Again, possibility of consulting to others. There are high chances of them for consulting others. The response cannot be supplemented by other information. In case of interview, in case of other things like observation, it can be supplemented by some other sources. Like for example, if you're interviewing, then some other people can come in and they can also add into your interview. Some other sources from some other organizations can come and supplement. But however, in case of questionnaire, supplementation of information is seen as one disadvantage. How should we choose between interview and questionnaire? When to use interview, when to use questionnaire? So there are a few criteria to look at when to choose interview or other method. First one is the nature of investigation. So if you're looking at very sensitive issues like drug use, sexuality, indulgence to criminal activities and all, public finances, asking about people's money and all, in that case, questionnaire is seen as a better choice over interviewing. People may not be telling you directly face to face about these sensitive questions. If you look at geographical distribution of the population, if your population that you want to do interview or do you want to do questionnaire is very diverse, very scattered, very located in very scattered manner, in that case, interview may be very expensive because you need to travel from one place to another place in that scattered geographical area, and it can be time consuming as well as quite expensive. So in that case, just send your questionnaire to them. They will answer the questions and you'll get back the questions. So questionnaire will be appropriate for geographic areas where we have got wide distribution of people living in that scattered area. The study of the type of population that you are studying will again is a factor that makes you to choose between interview and questionnaire, because if the population that you want to study is illiterate, very young, very old, or handicapped, then in these cases Questionnaire is not that feasible because very young people may not be able to write their views. Illiterate people may or may not read and write their views. Handicapped people again may or may not be able to read or write their views, like blind or people who have a problem with their hands and all. So in that case, I think interview is a better option. So that's it with choosing between interview and questionnaire, and that's again the end of the three broad methods of data collection for primary sources: observation, interview, and questionnaire. Thank you so much.